All right. What's up, Blueprint family? Thank you all for joining us tonight for another wonderful episode of the Blueprint Family Jewels.
Sorry,
So,
we were late tonight.
we
Sorry.
late every night.
No, sometimes we be on time now. Sometimes we be trying. We got kids and stuff, y'all. Sometimes it just don't be lining up on time, but we show up either way, especially if there's no other reasons. But we usually be rocking out. We here.
Yeah, but we're here. You are here with us as well.
Yeah.
So tonight's topic is what's a normal sex life in a relationship? What kind of question is that? We're about to dive into this question, and see what is a normal sex life in a relationship.
Yeah, this actually was based off of two very simple questions that we got, and I kind of thought for us to combine it into one to make it, into this whole topic. So the simple questions separately were, how often should a couple be having sex? And is it normal for a man to not initiate sex at all? So those are two very simple questions, but they go right, same topic. So, hey.
Well, I wanted to do this just like that video and interview that we did in New York with the Daily Wrap Up crew.
Yeah.
And it was very controversial because the video is still rolling today, as we did this probably 3 months ago or whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, sex, the benefit of sex in the relationship. Did you talk about that? What I said in this about the prostate?
No, because since this was new questions, I kind of didn't really think too much. But of course, these were things that we have already talked about. So yeah, for those who haven't seen that video, what was the most controversial statement you made?
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people, try to deny it. But
what was it though?
That men need, for a healthy prostate, men are supposed to have, scientifically, they say at least 20 ejaculations a month.
Or actually, the studies was based on it being more than 20.
Yeah,
and it reduced your risk of prostate cancer by 20%.
Right. So and then all the people followed up that you're supposed to do semen retention, or whatever the case, or what have you.
Although that wasn't really the topic, but
Right. But what does the science prove about that? No one could say anything about it. So I mean, if you all can, leave it in the comments, enlighten me in how semen retention reduces the risk of cancer. Everyone can only say it makes you stronger.
I just think those are two totally different topics. They're not really aligned, because in a normal, healthy relationship, you're supposed to have sex, and it benefits you as an individual.
Right, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a normal sex life and a benefit of a man and a woman, and it being in a relationship. Yeah. People straight off the topic started talking about semen retention, which had nothing to do with a normal sex life in a relationship, because that is not. If you're practicing semen retention in a relationship, then that means you're having a sexless marriage of some sorts. Maybe not. Or you're just like doing something very different that normal people. That's not a normal sex life. Bottom line.
I think in general, sex is still a very taboo topic for a lot of people. And it seems to still even be a lot of shame and stigma associated with it. It's either thrown down our faces in a very raunchy way, or it's like shame attached to it. It's like, where do we express that healthy, balance? Yeah.
People got shamed today dealing with sex.
Well, in the sense of talking about it, being open, and even actually having the communication skills to be able to express this, especially within a relationship. Sometimes this can be a difficult conversation to have. And like I'm saying, the shame may not be so much, as much as it was back when Christianity or religious beliefs were, at the forefront of society. But there's still a lack of understanding of often how to communicate this with your spouse in a healthy way, and how to have those conversations. Because to be honest, this in general, it's no one size fit all answer to these types of questions, because the frequency of sex and a healthy relationship will certainly vary depending on a wide variety of preferences and needs, So I guess this is kind of the direction we can take with this in order to head into like, what do you think? In order to head into the benefits per se, just really talking about the many factors that really will contribute to how often a couple has sex. And then, of course, digging into some beneficial tips for how you can have this conversation with your spouse and how you can look to have this healthy sex life or create this healthy sex life within your relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive right on in.
Okay.
So some major factors that can affect how often couples have sex include, but not limit to, one, age. So people's age, their sex drive, their libido may decrease over time. So these things include your hormone changes, physical changes, and medications as well. Yeah. So people who are having issues with medications and physical changes and health concerns and issues may have less sex naturally in a relationship.
Right. And that makes me wonder, sometimes with these simple questions, it's kind of hard for us to give more specific advice, but it makes me wonder the age difference between the man or the woman when looking at how often they have sex, especially if the woman is younger and the man is older. You know, age certainly plays a big part, or vice versa. You know, if the woman is older, you know, sometimes, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I've actually read more studies that women, when they are older, their sex drive may increase, while a man's tends to level out, especially because of the decreased testosterone that the male makes.
Yeah, and then the increase of testosterone that women make when they get older.
Right. Yeah, which is a huge factor into that. Yep. But health will certainly play a role overall in that. And, you know, things like genetics, hormones, lifestyles. In particular, I think about medications. If you're on like chronic pain medications, or especially depression or anxiety medications, those play a huge part in your sex drive.
Can't forget statins. People who are on high cholesterol statins, heart disease patients, they're more than likely to experience this as well.
Yeah, all of this has a huge impact on your libido, and it can certainly make it difficult to get aroused, you know?
And also, too, negative past experiences with sex can make it difficult for some people to relax and enjoy sex in the present.
That's the taboo when you're talking about people who have been abused, right? Which is very, you know, unfortunately, it's more common now in this day and age. So if someone has been sexually abused, they may have a difficult time trusting their spouse, maybe a little shy to open up and willing to allow them to touch them in certain ways, maybe especially in ways that could be triggering, that we'll certainly kind of get into, because that will go along with, I think, not having the same expectations, or maybe even like fantasies within, you know, relationships, sexual fantasies and stuff like that, how that can sometimes be triggering for your spouse if, you know, they've had some type of negative past experience. So this is why we always say communication is like the number one thing when it comes to everything that you experience within a relationship, and especially when it's things like sex, which requires you to be vulnerable, which requires you to be open. You really have to be able to have these conversations with your spouse so you can know if anything from the past is, like, you know, impacting your future or your now.
Yep. Performance anxiety. So some men in particular may experience performance anxiety. This is a fear of not being able to perform sexually. So this can lead to them avoiding sex altogether.
Yeah, like that. If
erectile dysfunctions.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, but even more so if it's a mental thing, right? So some guys, like, for example,
like size.
Yeah, if you're insecure about that. Yeah, because some guys, like, for example, she's asking why the man may not initiate sex if he's, one, afraid to be shot down, you know, maybe if you put him down too much, or you're not.
Yeah, men hate that.
Yeah. That can really stump the man's ego and make him like, I ain't about to keep doing this.
What happens is that makes them not even, right. They don't even want to ask next week or next time. They want you to initiate it so that they're not wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's a very reasonable thing to think about. You gotta say yes sometimes and be open to having this fun sexual experience with your spouse. If not, of course, they can get insecure, especially if they're worried about how they're performing, if they don't think that they're, pleasing you in the way that you may like to be pleased. So sometimes that can have a big impact on whether or not they're scared to engage in, the act with you. So something to consider.
And then next, stress levels. So stress levels can be caused by all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But when some people are stressed, they may be less likely to have sex. So this is because stress can interfere with your libido, arousal, and orgasms.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Do you talk about sleep?
Well, that's certainly one of. I think that would go with the health. With health.
Okay.
Based off of health, because of that's one we did not mention.
Yeah, health. Sleep. So if you are suffering from a lack of sleep also as well, that does affect your sexual performance as well. Both men and women. So that's another issue why you may not have a normal sex pattern or schedule or whatever.
Yeah, or have difficulties finding a good frequency that meets both needs, especially if one spouse is having like a job that's more demanding than the next spouse. Then you're less likely. I think about this may be a little controversial to say here, but women who work outside of the house, they might be a little more stressed and less likely to have the energy to want to engage in sex as often as the man might want, aside from if his wife is at home or able to, work for her own self or work in the way that she, can make her own schedule and stuff like that. The less stress on the woman. I think that's why they, back then people used to always have the jokes about the woman waiting for the guy, to come home and be ready for like sex and stuff like that. The advantage, kind of like locker room men talk over just having a woman at home because of that. Because if not, then, she's kind of less likely to have the energy sometimes. Not all women are like that, but it's certainly a contributing factor. More stress on your hands, or things you got to do per se. So it's one thing to really consider if you're in a relationship. And I think men, it's a big plus for you if you're able to be a full provider for your wife and she's able to be at home or work at her own pace or whatever the arrangement you have.
Right. It's different if you have children, though, because she's still working at home.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, that plays a huge part. Yeah.
So it's not
and you still got to help, but yeah.
It's not like the honeymoon phase. You're not going to get the honeymoon phase if you have, 4 children, 2,
right,
or maybe one very demanding child, and then expect sex to be as regular without children. So that's unrealistic.
That is so true. Yep. But certainly a bonus and something to consider. Stress levels, right? Trying to minimize stress levels between both of you all so that you're having a more enjoyable sexual experience.
Next is relationship satisfaction.
Yeah.
Couples who are happy and satisfied in their relationship are more likely to have a healthy sex life. So this is because they are more likely to feel comfortable and open with each other. And they are more likely to be interested in pleasing each other.
Yep, certainly.
So if there's a problem in the relationship, this can also lead to a decrease in sex drive, of course. Men who are feeling unhappy or unfulfilled in their relationships may be less likely to initiate sex.
Mm-hmm.
And may be more likely to cheat. Vice versa with the females as well. So
yeah. This applies for women too.
Right, because women cheat, and that video that we showed, women cheat just as much as men do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's so true. And just to tie it back to what the question was saying, why would a man not initiate it? You have to look at some problems maybe within your relationship. Is he open and comfortable actually with you? How is your conversation? Sometimes if you haven't had that conversation with your spouse about something, you really are kind of just leaving the problem to fester and build versus addressing what's really going on. So really see if there's an underlying cause that's really contributing to why this man or woman may not be initiating sex with you.
And the next, communication, a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Couples who communicate effectively about sex are more likely to have a fulfilling sex life. This is because they are able to express their needs and desires to each other. and they're able to work through any problem that arises. So if a couple is not communicating well about their sexual needs and desires, this can also lead to a decrease in sex drive, of course.
Yeah, that's a given.
Yep,
but certainly a factor. And another factor, you kind of hit on this earlier, was time, right? So couples who are super busy, who have a lot going on, other commitments, whether that's children or just a demanding job, it's certainly going to make it a little less easier, yeah, that's the right term. Sorry, it's late. But a little less easier to engage in, intimacy with your spouse, because you probably don't have the time, or you're really tired even after your long day. So something to consider and keep in mind.
Yeah, but not all couples are sexually compatible.
Yeah.
So couples are very different and expect different things about sex.
Yeah.
So some people may expect to have sex frequently, more often, while others may be more content with a less active sex life.
Yeah.
So this can make it difficult to find a frequency of sex that works for both spouses. Some people may also have certain kinks or fantasies that their spouse is not interested in.
Yeah, that compatibility. Of course, all of these things is going to affect the couple differently, all of these different factors, but sexual compatibility, I think, is one of the biggest ones that have to be talked about very early, and it'll open the door for you all to be comfortable to even, experiment and increase your intimacy in other ways, just because you're already just having the conversation about it. So a little later, we'll get into some key ways of going about this conversation with your spouse. If it's a new relationship, or if you're just dating and you're trying to figure out and talk about things. I think this again is a very taboo conversation to have, because when you think about religious people who may not necessarily think you should have sex with your spouse before marriage or before a serious commitment, that's certainly all going to be based on personal preferences, but it's certainly within your best interest to try to figure out what are your likes, what are your dislikes, what are some things you're into, what are some things you're certainly not into, long before you decide this is the person that you're going to marry. So even if you are not engaging in the act within itself, you should be very much comfortable with talking to your spouse about all of this. Like, it's just kind of a part of what makes a healthy sex life in general. When we're talking full 360, communication is a huge part. It doesn't even necessarily, like, a healthy sex life doesn't even mean necessarily that you're having sex as often, but just in general, you're creating an enjoyable experience for both of you all, whether that's, gearing up to it or actually engaging in it. Sex and communication go hand in hand, really. But I think before we head in to those major tips, quick disclosure, because we do have a younger crowd that's actually starting to watch us more, which we are very thankful for, because we understand a lot of people, especially a lot of younger people, may not be as open to talking about topics like sex with their parents or anything like that, especially 18 and older. We're still conversation with the 18 and older crowd. But for those who do need to hear this, a healthy sex life certainly involves, first, open and honest communication about your sexual desires and needs. That has to be there. And then two, you both have to enthusiastically, I like to put that in there because that's important. You both should be enthusiastically consenting to all of the sexual activity that you engaged in. So it should really be enthusiastic. That's what makes it, fun.
And then respecting each other's bodies and boundaries.
Yeah.
So making sure that you all both are, like my wife said, consenting to these activities. And then next, being pleasurable for both spouses.
It should be, yes.
Communicate on the level of pleasure that you all are getting, and communicate about that more than often. So also using protection to prevent sexually transmitted diseases for those people who are not married and don't know where their partners were last night. You may need to use some sort of contraceptions or some sort of sexual protection to make sure that you're not spreading parasites and STIs and
right,
all the other alphabets that go out there.
Right.
Please.
In the world of loving to promote not doing this, don't listen to that. We're going to sage all that advice, please.
What are you talking about?
Not using protection in the age of...
Who said that?
What's her name? I don't even know these young rappers' names, but one girl on the blogs was recently like, she's the raw dog queen. Sorry, TMI, but whoa, that statement, phew, went over my head. I'm sure y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't even remember the girl's name. I don't know.
Horrible advice, first of all.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said sage all that advice, because no, don't do that. That is the most dangerous thing you could really do, especially in this day and age. Times is different, so please.
Yeah, there's nothing queen about that at all.
No, not
anyways,
at all.
Practicing safe family planning practices like birth control or tracking cycles.
Yeah, that's important. Well. Don't be having them illegitimate kids. You should know you have sex, you can have a baby. So
be responsible.
Yes,
you're responsible. Yeah. Also take accountability for your actions as well.
Yes.
So none of this stuff should come as a surprise, and then also you need to be prepared for the outcomes of all of these.
Mm-hmm.
Being aware of and respecting each other's sexual history. So
yes, you should be aware of and respecting each other's sexual history. That's taboo, but that needs to be said. You should be. You should know. It's for your safety, for their safety, and then for the openness of the relationship. If it's a genuine relationship and you are genuinely moving in towards having something that is committed and profound, you should be comfortable talking about your sexual history.
Yeah, and the next being willing to experiment and try new things.
Yeah, of course. Once you're in that committed and profound, deep relationship, preferably with marriage contracts involved for accountability, but you know.
Feeling comfortable and safe during sex.
Yeah.
Being able to say no to sexual activities that you are not comfortable with.
Yeah, those are our disclosures. We had to do it. We can't have this conversation without doing something like that. So, yeah. Anyways, let's get into some tips, though, in particular for talking about sex with your spouse. So, first off, we always say you got to set the environment. You got to be prepared. You got to set your intentions. Usually, with any conversation, especially if it's a big one that you may be a little uncomfortable about, set that intention with yourself first. Say, hey, this is what I'm going into having this conversation with my spouse about. This is what I want to get across from them. This is kind of the reaction that I'm hoping to receive, what I'm looking for to get from them, having that clear understanding within yourself. And then you want to be able to set that environment up to allow for that to take place, right? So you want to choose a time and a place where you're both comfortable, where you're both relaxed. Don't try to do something like this when y'all tired, when you're fresh off of work, when you're hangry or high off of emotions, or even when you're feeling things like, jealousy or insecurity. That's not a time to try to bring in a conversation about, sex or something you want your spouse to be comfortable in. You don't want to be triggered, right? You want to have this reasonable conversation.
Yeah, but start by talking about your general feelings about sex. So do you enjoy it? What do you find uncomfortable? Answer and ask those questions.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy in particular?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Be specific about your likes and dislikes. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Yeah. Be specific. That should be a fun conversation too, mm-hmm. to be honest.
And for those people who don't have a lot of time, schedule sex. So mm-hmm. This may sound unromantic, but it is a helpful and useful way to make sure that you both are having sex as often as you want. Mm-hmm. So you can schedule sex for a specific time each week, or you can simply make a plan to have sex more often.
Yeah. This is big if, like this question, I guess, maybe was alluding towards if the frequency of sex is not matching up. Maybe your libido is a little bit higher than your man's or vice versa. Look to compromise within that and schedule sex. Really talk about it. Say, hey, I'm having a higher libido. I enjoy having sex with you. Certainly when you're introducing a conversation like this, don't make it like an embarrassing moment where the spouse may feel like, hey, you're not pleased by them, or you're not getting enough for them, or that they're not enough for you. You want to introduce it like, hey, I enjoy our intimacy together. I enjoy pleasing you. I enjoy you pleasing me. I enjoy that connection. I want us to do it more. Let's sit down and schedule this time, or, I want us to figure out a great time for us to always be sure to engage in this activity, or to certainly get ourselves a little more revved up to actually have it.
The next, be creative. Don't be afraid to try new things. Like I said before, this can help you to keep your sex life exciting and fresh, so you can try new positions, toys, or new activities, etc.
That's personal preference, but certainly always focus on your foreplay, right? So foreplay can take place even before you've gotten into the bedroom. So this can be anything from having those tantalizing conversations with each other through text message, on the phone, little notes to each other, little pats on the butts throughout the day, little ways of engaging and saying, hey, I'm attracted to you, I'm connected with you, I would possibly be interested in doing something with you later. Just throwing little hints that can kind of keep you both in the mood. It's overall just going to help increase arousal and make sex more enjoyable when you get to that point, hopefully.
Right. And then also, too, take your time. So don't feel rushed to have sex unless you're rushing to have sex. So take the time to explore each other's bodies and to find what feels good.
Yeah. For those new, especially those new couples, when you are figuring out, that takes time, right? In general, figuring out what each other likes, being able to get into that routine of nice knowing how to please each other. That's the beautiful thing, I think, about sex within the relationship, especially within the confinements of a man and a woman, the husband and wife, because it affords you this opportunity to know your spouse in a way that you kind of shouldn't know with anybody else. It should be a deep connection that only you two share within the bedroom. That's what really, I think, makes it special if you're really gonna, take the time to fertilize and cultivate that within your relationship.
Be respectful of your spouse's boundaries. So if you are not interested in something, don't pressure them. Also, be willing to compromise. So if it's unlikely that you and your spouse will have exactly the same expectations about sex, so be willing to meet them halfway. And then also, too, please be patient. It takes time to find a frequency of sex that works for both spouses. Don't get discouraged if you don't find it right away. So keep talking to your spouse and keep experimenting, especially for the scheduling.
Yeah, if it's a real issue. I think in particular, sex in general is something that you just have to learn and go with the flow. I think it should really be natural. It should come natural. It shouldn't be, a struggle. I think if it's too much of the frequency, not being able to figure out, if it's too less or too much more than you want, really got to be able to find that balance, because that could really impact later on, if this is the person that's actually for you. I think sex may be one of those deal breakers, within the relationship, especially if maybe your age plays a big part in that. That's something certainly to consider, if, how important sex is going to be to you if you get into a relationship with someone older than you that may not be able to keep up with you, or, they have any health issues or anything like that.
Or if you have children, especially for the young people out there who don't have children, and then you are in a relationship, a committed relationship, realize that, and also understand that once you have children, you're going to have sex less. So mentally prepare for that. That is going to happen. So mentally prepare for that, and there's no other way around that, to be honest with you. So
yeah, because kids really do take up a lot of that time of figuring out. And then sometimes I remember our early life with just a newborn, our first baby, we pass out as soon as the baby pass out too, because you're so tired. Like it's a real thing. But that's, again, one of those beautiful parts of life, understanding that it's going to be those ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're going to be hot and heavy all the time, and sometimes you're not. But it's just being able to communicate during those times and actually maintain the focus of keeping intimacy at the forefront, right? Never neglect it. Even if you have kids, it's still you and your relationship. You still have to make time for this, and you still should want to connect with your spouse. One thing that did pop in my head that I don't think we talked about in particular would be we've kind of hit on this a little bit, but men in particular, how the shift from having lots of sex, maybe with different women, and then having to be in a monogamous relationship and adjusting to, the sex with one woman, or, that just the transition of what that will look like. And I mean, that may be, again, a little taboo to also talk about for like a woman, how you got to kind of be careful if you're engaging in a lot of sex, just knowing how to mentally take that shift, or being prepared to mentally take that shift into a monogamous relationship, because it's not the same, and it's going to require a big level of maturity of understanding, hey, this is a committed relationship now. It's kind of like a detox of getting like all of that out of you, so that then you can have that relationship.
Right. And it will happen. You have to be committed to the process, of course, and not be selfish. So just understand that. So like I said before, be patient, because it takes time to find the frequency of sex that works for both spouses.
Yeah. Especially as it goes through life.
Yeah.
Yep. That in general, as always, we have to say, if you are struggling to talk about sex or need a little more help on what a healthy sex life is, certainly please don't hesitate to seek third-party help. We are available for consultation. You can also go to a therapist, a counselor, vet your therapist and counselor. Married, we always say that. Make sure that they're happily married, sane, mind. That all matters. But it's really just so you can have that added support and guidance on how you can work to improve your sex life within your relationship. It's very important. We really encourage all of our viewers to take the time to have that open conversation with your spouse. Be open about that. And if you are still a little nervous or, not open about that, please don't hesitate to seek help, because you need to. Sex is important. Also, try out one of the things we talked about tonight. I think we went over a couple goals, a couple things that we might not have ever talked about before. I think we've had maybe one other topic on sex, one or two, minus when you're getting the hormones into play, right? That's, of course, another big part of all of this as well. Testing your testosterone, men, that's huge within our society. It's a lot of things that decrease your testosterone. If libido is playing a part in that, test your testosterone. That's a big thing. It's overall going to help your overall health. In the same way, we encourage our women to go out and test your hormone levels. Make sure everything is balanced. Do those detox parasites, detox other toxins out of your body that can really open and clear your system and help everything regulate and focus and function in the way it's supposed to. So do those things. And I really think that will help improve overall your sex life. Having those open conversations, being intimate, connecting with each other. Intimacy is more than just, physical. It encompasses the emotional as well. So being open to having those deep conversations with each other, that's really going to help too. Well, that's all I got for the most part.
Yep. And with that being said, anyone have any comments, questions that they would like to ask? This is a live call-in show. You can join video chat, voice chat, or what have you.
Yeah. Let me see. Facebook, YouTube. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. And like we say every night,
Instagram.
We have a tremendous amount of support on Instagram. We really appreciate it. We have a lot of support on YouTube as well. So all of the YouTube subscribers, if you all can join in and subscribe to our Instagram as well, we really appreciate it. And vice versa for the Instagram subscribers and Facebook people. If you all can also join in on our YouTube and help us to get those likes up and those subscriptions. Really appreciate it.
So, and any other topics that you have. We love the topics. Come up with actual things that we can talk about, real life situations that you may go through or heard about, want some clarification on. That's certainly what we're here for. We'd love to just hold this vibrational place to be able to offer legit, great advice from a space that's, in alignment with hopefully what you want to achieve within your life, a deep, profound, happy relationship for yourself. That's what we hope for you. So we hope you are looking to get that as well.
Yeah. So with that being said, Blueprint family, thank you all for joining us tonight. And we will see you all tomorrow night, same time, same place. Peace.
I left the